John Kennedy just annihilates AOC and the entire Democratic with facts. The House Ethics Committee chamber buzzed with an electric tension that seemed to hum through the polished marble walls, a space that had seen countless hearings, but none quite like this. Reporters packed the gallery, their cameras clicking softly, capturing a moment that promised to etch itself into American political history. At the center of it all stood Senator John Kennedy, the Louisiana Republican, known for his razor-sharp wit and unyielding commitment to truth, his presence commanding the room with a folksy gravitas that belied the gravity of the accusations he was about to unleash. Across from him sat Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, the fiery progressive icon whose meteoric rise had made her a global symbol of democratic socialism, her confident demeanor masking the storm that was about to break. Flanked by her high-powered legal team, AOC projected the assurance of someone who had weathered countless controversies but today felt different. The air was thick with anticipation, as if the chamber itself knew it was witnessing the opening act of a constitutional reckoning. Kennedy, with his signature drawl and piercing gaze, began with a calm that carried the weight of a seasoned prosecutor. "Congresswoman Ocasio-Cortez, thank you for appearing before this committee," he said, his voice steady but laced with an authority that silenced the room. "Today, we're not here to discuss policy differences or political theater. We're here to examine evidence, hard documented facts that suggest a pattern of deception that has undermined the trust of the American people." He gestured to a single meticulously arranged folder on the table before him, its contents bearing the unmistakable markings of classified intelligence. "This isn't about ideology or party. It's about accountability. And we're going to start with January 6th, a day you've described as a near-death experience, a trauma that shaped your public narrative. Let's see if that story holds up under scrutiny." The chamber fell silent, the weight of Kennedy's words settling over the audience like a heavy fog. AOC shifted in her seat, her expression still defiant, but a flicker of unease crossed her eyes as Kennedy opened the folder with deliberate precision. The American people deserved the truth about what happened that day. He continued, his tone measured but unrelenting. "You've told the world you hid in fear, believing you were moments from death as rioters stormed the Capitol. You've used that narrative to rally supporters to raise millions in donations to cement your place as a voice for the traumatized. But the evidence we've compiled through the Capitol Police, the Secret Service, and intelligence analysis tells a very different story." He clicked a remote, and the chamber's large monitors flickered to life, displaying a detailed architectural map of the Capitol complex. The diagram was no mere sketch. It was a forensic reconstruction, complete with security perimeters, rioter paths in red, and the precise locations of every member of Congress marked in blue. The map zoomed in on the Cannon House office building 500 yards from the Capitol itself, where a single blue dot marked AOC's position. "Congresswoman, this map shows you were never in the Capitol building during the riot." Kennedy said, his voice cutting through the room like a blade. "You were in the Cannon building, separated by half a football field and multiple security layers from the nearest rioter. Yet you've claimed you were hiding in a bathroom, fearing for your life. Why don't we let the evidence speak for itself?" He clicked again, and security footage from the Cannon building filled the screens, time-stamped during the height of the January 6th chaos. There was AOC visible through her office window, standing calmly speaking on her phone, her demeanor composed not a trace of the terror she'd described in countless interviews and social media posts. Gasps rippled through the chamber as the footage played the stark contrast between her public narrative and the reality undeniable. AOC leaned forward, her voice steady, but tinged with defensiveness. "Senator Kennedy, The entire Capitol complex was under threat that day. The fear was real, regardless of my exact location. I was evacuated like many others, and I felt the danger as acutely as anyone. Her legal team nodded, ready to pivot to her emotional truth. But Kennedy wasn't having it. "Fear is a powerful thing, Congresswoman," he said, his eyes narrowing. "But fabricating fear for political gain, that's something else entirely. Let's listen to what you said 2 days after the event, in a conversation recorded under legal FISA authority." The chamber's audio system crackled to life, and AOC's unmistakable voice filled the room, cold and calculated. "We need a powerful narrative about January 6th, she said in the recording. "If I wasn't in the immediate danger zone, I'll create danger from my own trauma experience. The Instagram Live will be perfect. Hiding, thinking I was going to die, the police officer who scared me. No one can argue with personal experience." Her chief of staff's voice responded cautious. "Are you sure about making it so dramatic? People might fact-check the locations." AOC's reply was chilling. "Most people don't know the Capitol's layout. I'll make it about feelings trauma, the emotional impact. Fear is subjective. No one can prove I wasn't terrified." The silence that followed was deafening, broken only by the frantic typing of reporters and the stunned whispers of committee members. AOC's face paled, her hands gripping the table as Kennedy leaned forward, his voice low but piercing. "Congresswoman, you just heard yourself plotting to turn a national tragedy and into political theater. That recording wasn't dug up by political operatives. It came from the intelligence community's counterterrorism assessment, authorized to investigate threats to our democracy. You weren't just exaggerating. You were manufacturing a lie to manipulate the American people." AOC's legal team scrambled, one attorney whispering urgently, but she raised a hand to silence them. "Senator, that recording is out of context," she said, her voice faltering. "You can't use classified surveillance in a congressional hearing to twist my words." Kennedy's response was swift and devastating. "When a member of Congress triggers a national security investigation, privacy takes a backseat to accountability," he said. "The intelligence community doesn't target lawmakers for sport. We investigate threats. And your actions, Congresswoman, landed you square in that net." He produced another piece of evidence, this time a financial analysis that appeared on the monitors, its numbers stark and condemning. "Your January 6th narrative wasn't just a story, it was a business. Within 48 hours of your Instagram Live where you described hiding in terror, your campaign raised $2.1 million. That's the most successful single piece of content you've ever produced. And it was built on a lie." The screen displayed donation spikes, each tied to specific posts and videos about January 6th, with data from the Federal Election Commission showing the funds flowing directly to AOC's campaign accounts. Kennedy's voice grew sharper, his southern drawl carrying a moral edge. "You didn't just profit from a national tragedy, you planned it." Let's hear another recording, this one from 3 weeks after January 6th in your apartment, speaking with your boyfriend Riley Roberts. The audio played AOC's voice, now tinged with a casual arrogance. "The best part is, no one can prove I wasn't scared," she said, laughing. "Fear is subjective. I can say I was terrified, traumatized, whatever, and it becomes my truth." That Instagram Live got 150,000 viewers and $2 million in donations. Sometimes the best politics is just good theater. Riley's voice chimed in. "Don't you feel bad about exaggerating?" AOC's laughter filled the chamber again. "Exaggerating? I'm telling my truth. If my truth helps Democrats and hurts our opponents, it's serving the greater good. Besides, I was scared of missing a political opportunity." The chamber erupted in shocked murmurs, the weight of AOC's own words sinking in. Kennedy stood motionless, letting the recording's impact settle before continuing. "Congresswoman, you turned one of the darkest days in American history into a fundraising stunt," he said, his voice steady but laced with righteous indignation. "While police officers fought for their lives and our democracy faced a genuine threat, you were crafting a narrative to cash in. That's not leadership. That's betrayal." He gestured to the monitors, where a side-by-side comparison showed AOC's public statements against the intelligence evidence, her claims of hiding in a bathroom juxtaposed with footage of her calm demeanor, her tearful Instagram Live, contrasted with donation records spiking in real time. AOC attempted a defense, her voice rising with a mix of panic and defiance. "Senator Kennedy, these accusations ignore the emotional reality of that day. I was speaking my truth as a survivor of trauma, and you're twisting it into something sinister." Kennedy leaned forward, his eyes locking onto hers. "Your truth, Congresswoman. Your truth raised $2.1 million by exploiting a national tragedy. Your truth turned genuine fear into political capital. Your truth was a calculated lie documented by your own words and actions." He held up a report from the Capitol Police, its pages stamped with classification markings. "This is the security analysis of January 6th, showing every member's location. You were never in danger. You were never near the rioters. You were safe 500 yards away, planning how to turn a crisis into a windfall." The chamber's atmosphere shifted, the usual partisan divide replaced by a shared sense of shock. Even AOC's allies sat in silence, their typical vocal support absent as the evidence mounted. Kennedy's methodical approach, each piece of evidence building on the last, left no room for deflection. He produced one final piece of audio recorded at a private fundraising event where AOC's voice dripped with cynicism. "January 6th was my moment," she said. "Not because I was in danger, but because I could use it to build political power. People want to feel like they're part of history. If I give them that, they'll open their wallets." The recording stopped, and Kennedy let the silence linger, his gaze sweeping the chamber. "Congresswoman, you didn't just lie about January 6th. You exploited the pain of a nation for personal gain. And that's just the beginning." He closed the folder with a deliberate snap, his expression unyielding. "We've only covered one day in your career, Congresswoman, one lie that profited you millions. But this is just the first chapter. The American people deserve to know the full scope of your actions, how far your deception goes, and who paid the price for it." Kennedy's voice softened, but the intensity remained. "We're not done here. The next folder will show how you turned economic opportunity into political theater, betraying the very working families you claim to champion." The chamber held its breath, the weight of Kennedy's words signaling that this was only the start of a relentless pursuit of truth. AOC's confident facade began to crack, her legal team whispering frantically, but the Louisiana senator stood firm, a constitutional warrior armed with facts, ready to unravel the next layer of betrayal. The chamber's tension thickened as Senator John Kennedy shifted seamlessly from the debris of the January 6th deception to the next layer of betrayal, his steady gaze never wavering from Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. The Louisiana Republican, renowned for his incisive questioning and unwavering dedication to the everyday American, opened the second folder with the same methodical calm that had already begun to dismantle AOC's carefully crafted image. "Congresswoman, we've seen how you twisted a national tragedy for personal gain." Kennedy said, his voice carrying a blend of Southern warmth and prosecutorial steel. "Now let's talk about how you applied that same talent for deception to something even more tangible: the economic futures of hard-working families in your own district. Specifically, your role in torpedoing the Amazon HQ2 deal, a project that promised 25 jobs and billions in economic growth for New York. The room stirred reporters leaning forward as Kennedy activated the chamber's displays, revealing a sprawling economic model that mapped out the lost opportunities in vivid detail, lines of projected job creation snaking through neighborhoods like veins of prosperity that had been abruptly severed. AOC sat straighter, her expression hardening into one of practiced indignation, her legal team shuffling papers as if preparing for a familiar battle. But Kennedy wasn't here for rhetoric. He was armed with facts compiled from Treasury analyses, Labor Department projections, and intelligence financial tracking that painted a picture of calculated sabotage. This wasn't about policy critique or community concerns. He continued, pointing to the screen where numbers glowed accusingly. Amazon's HQ2 was set to inject $27.5 billion into New York's economy over a decade, creating not just 25,000 direct jobs at an average salary of $150,000, but another 67,000 indirect ones in construction services and small businesses. We're talking real change for families in Queens. Better schools, safer streets, hope for the next generation. But you led the charge to kill it. And the evidence shows it wasn't for the people. It was for politics and payoffs. He clicked forward, and bank records materialized, showing transfers totaling $347,000 to entities linked to AOC's campaign and family, all timed suspiciously around Amazon's withdrawal, originating from competitors like Tesla and Google through veiled consulting fees. The murmurs grew as Kennedy delved deeper, his tone empathetic toward the victims of this economic fallout. Let's hear from someone who knows the cost firsthand, he said, gesturing to the witness stand where Maria Gonzalez, a single mother from Queens, took her seat with quiet dignity, her worn hands folded in her lap. Maria's story unfolded like a heartbreaking testament to lost dreams. A 45-year-old working 2 part-time jobs, she had pinned her hopes on Amazon's arrival, investing in training courses and childcare arrangements for a promised warehouse management position, paying $52,000 with benefits. I believed in the opportunity, Maria testified, her voice steady but laced with pain. It meant health care for my kids, a chance to get ahead. But when the deal fell through, I lost everything I'd invested, money I couldn't afford to spare. Kennedy nodded solemnly, his eyes reflecting genuine concern for her plight, a stark contrast to AOC's impassive stare. Mrs. Gonzalez, did Congresswoman Ocasio-Cortez's office offer any help after the jobs vanished? He asked gently. Maria shook her head. I wrote 3 times. They sent form letters asking for donations. AOC interjected, her voice sharp with defensiveness. Senator, I fought that deal to protect our community from corporate greed and gentrification. Amazon was getting billions in taxpayer handouts while displacing long-time residents. Kennedy's response was swift, his drawl sharpening into a blade of logic. Handouts. Those were performance-based tax incentives. Amazon only got breaks if they delivered the jobs. No jobs, no breaks. And as for gentrification, let's look at the facts. He brought up property data from New York's Department of Finance charts showing rent hikes of 67% in AOC's district under her watch, median incomes dropping 12%, all while she claimed to battle displacement. Your opposition accelerated the very problems you decried, Kennedy said, while destroying opportunities that could have kept families rooted. The evidence mounted audio from a strategy session where AOC's voice revealed her cynicism. Amazon will come anyway. They need New York, she said in the recording. We kill the incentives, claim victory over corporate welfare, and get the jobs quietly. Perfect politics. Her strategist voiced doubt. What if they don't come back? AOC's reply, blame greed. Either way, I win the narrative. Those people will vote for me anyway, they've got nowhere else to go. The chamber recoiled at the callousness, Kennedy letting the words hang before pressing on. You coordinated with Amazon's rivals, taking their money to eliminate competition, all while your constituents suffered. Financial flows appeared on screen tracing the $347,000 through shell entities, no real consulting work documented, just rewards for economic disruption. Maria Gonzalez's testimony amplified the human toll, her eyes meeting AOC's across the room. You protected us from good jobs, from health care. You left us in poverty. Kennedy's empathy shone through as he thanked her, turning back to AOC with unyielding resolve. Congresswoman, this wasn't advocacy. It was sabotage, documented by your own admissions and the Treasury's tracking. He displayed economic multipliers, 92,000 total jobs, lost billions in tax revenue vanished that could have funded the social programs AOC championed in speeches but undermined in actions. AOC's defense crumbled under the weight, her team whispering urgently as she tried to pivot. These statistics ignore the long-term harms of unchecked corporate power. But Kennedy dismantled it piece by piece, his logic impeccable. Long-term harms families like Maria's needed those jobs now. You traded their futures for political points and payoffs. Another recording played from a private meeting with anti-Amazon activists, AOC laughing off concerns. If we lose the jobs, it's corporate greed's fault. Win-win for the narrative. The indifference struck like a hammer, Kennedy's voice rising with controlled outrage. You treated working families as pawns, Congresswoman. While you collected consulting cash, they collected unemployment slips. He summoned more witnesses, small business owners from Queens, whose shops would have thrived on Amazon's influx, now shuttered or struggling. One, a bodega operator named Carlos Rivera, spoke of dashed expansion plans. We were ready to hire locals, grow with the community. Now we're barely hanging on. Kennedy wove their stories into the broader tapestry of betrayal, his commitment to truth evident in every question, every revealed document. This folder isn't just numbers, it's lives disrupted, he said, closing in on AOC. You claimed to fight for the little guy, but you fought against their shot at prosperity. The displays shifted to correlation analyses. AOC's anti-Amazon tweets spiking donations to her campaign, each post a calculated strike against economic growth. Your victory lap over killing HQ2. It cost New York $27.5 billion in activity, but padded your political coffers. AOC's face tightened, her responses growing feeble. I stood for principles over profits. Kennedy shook his head. Principles or payoffs? The evidence says the latter. As the chapter of economic devastation unfolded, Kennedy's relentless pursuit of facts left no doubt. This was a man dedicated to holding power accountable, his empathy for the affected, contrasting sharply with AOC's detachment. He snapped the folder shut, the sound echoing like a gavel. We've seen the cost, to families, to communities. But this is just one more thread in a web of deception. Next, we'll examine how you turned environmental concerns into a fundraising machine with little regard for actual science or solutions. The chamber braced Kennedy's unshakable resolve, promising more revelations, the weight of his words building toward an inevitable confrontation with the full truth. The House Ethics Committee chamber vibrated with an almost palpable tension as Senator John Kennedy, the Louisiana Republican, whose incisive logic and unyielding commitment to truth had already reshaped the hearing, turned to the third folder, with a gravity that silenced even the softest whispers. Known for his ability to cut through political noise with clear-eyed reasoning, Kennedy had methodically exposed Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez's deceptions around national tragedies and economic sabotage. But now, he faced her most celebrated cause, the Green New Deal, a plan she'd championed as a beacon of environmental hope. His steady hand already opened the folder, revealing a trove of scientific reports, financial records, and intercepted communications that promised to dismantle her image as a climate warrior. Congresswoman, you've built your reputation on fighting for the planet, rallying millions with promises of a sustainable future. Kennedy said, his voice a blend of Southern charm and unrelenting scrutiny. But the evidence we're about to examine suggests this wasn't about saving the Earth. It was about exploiting fear, manipulating science, and turning environmental concern into a machine for political power and personal profit. AOC sat across from him, her posture defiant, yet strained her legal team exchanging glances as they braced for another onslaught of facts. But Kennedy's approach was rooted in data so rigorous it left no room for rhetorical escape. He activated the chamber's massive displays, and a cascade of economic and scientific projections illuminated the room, compiled through exhaustive collaboration between MIT's Climate Policy Laboratory, Stanford's Environmental Economics Institute, the Congressional Budget Office, and the intelligence community's financial tracking units. The numbers were staggering, almost incomprehensible in their scale. The Green New Deal, as written, carried a projected cost of $93 trillion over 10 years, 4 times the entire GDP of the United States. Let's break that down for folks at home, Kennedy said, his folksy drawl grounding the abstract figures. That's $65,000 in additional taxes every year for every American family, a 38% hit to our GDP, and 47 million jobs lost across every sector, manufacturing, services, you name it. And what do we get for this? According to EPA modeling, a mere 0.83% reduction in global carbon emissions. That's not a solution. It's a rounding error. Committee members leaned forward, some visibly stunned, as Kennedy pointed to charts showing the physical impossibilities. Converting the U.S. energy grid to 100% renewables in a decade would require building infrastructure at 40 times the current global production capacity, a feat that defied engineering, logistics, and even basic physics. AOC interjected, her voice sharp with the passion that had fueled her rise. Senator, the Green New Deal isn't just numbers. It's a bold response to a climate crisis threatening humanity. We can't afford timid steps when the planet's on the line. Her legal team nodded, ready to frame the debate as vision versus skepticism, but Kennedy wasn't playing that game. Boldness is fine, Congresswoman, when it's backed by reality, he replied, his eyes narrowing with precision. But when your plan ignores science, dismisses proven solutions like nuclear power, and costs more than the entire economy, that's not boldness, it's deception dressed up as hope. He clicked to a new display, this one tracking financial flows tied to the Green New Deal's advocacy sourced from Treasury's Financial Crimes Enforcement Network. You raised $47.3 million through groups tied to this plan, but only $1.8 million, less than 4%, went to actual environmental programs or research. The rest, administrative overhead, consulting fees, private jets, and what analysts call lifestyle maintenance for activists who've never delivered a single green solution. The screen mapped a web of PACs, nonprofits, and shell companies, funds flowing from donation drives to luxury expenses, with no trace of ecological impact. Kennedy's voice grew somber as he introduced the human cost. Let's hear from someone who believed in your vision, he said, inviting Sarah Nguyen, a young environmental activist from AOC's district, to the witness stand. Sarah, in her mid-20s, spoke with quiet conviction, her hands trembling slightly. "I donated $200, my entire savings, because I thought we were fighting for the planet," she said. "I volunteered, organized rallies, spread the word online, believing the Green New Deal would create jobs and save our future. But I found out most of that money went to consultants and travel, not clean energy or community programs." Her voice cracked as she looked at AOC. "You made us feel like we were part of something historic, but it was just a fundraiser." Kennedy thanked her gently, his empathy for genuine idealists clear, then turned back to AOC. "This isn't just about dollars, Congresswoman. It's about broken trust. People like Sarah gave everything, only to learn their sacrifices funded your political machine." To drive the point home, Kennedy played a recording from a strategy session in AOC's office, her voice chillingly pragmatic. "The Green New Deal doesn't need to work. It needs to inspire," she said. "Climate anxiety drives donations better than practical fixes. If we actually solved climate change, we'd lose our best issue." Her consultant hesitated. "What about those who believe we're saving the planet?" AOC's reply was stark. "They'll keep giving as long as we keep the crisis alive. Climate's a tool for power toward a fairer economy." Gasps rippled through the chamber as Kennedy paused the audio, letting the cynicism sink in. "You didn't just exploit fear," he said, his tone heavy with moral weight. "You weaponized a cause people live for, turning their hope into your profit." He pointed to financial charts showing donation spikes tied to AOC's climate posts, each tweet or video generating thousands in contributions, with 96% diverted to non-environmental uses. But the deception ran deeper, and Kennedy's next revelation stunned even the most jaded observers. "Your plan wasn't just impractical, it was designed to fail with help from unlikely allies," he said, revealing classified intelligence about secret meetings between AOC's staff and executives from ExxonMobil, Chevron, and BP, tracked through NSA monitoring of luxury resort bookings and private flights. These weren't showdowns with polluters. They were negotiations to ensure the Green New Deal stayed toothless. Banking records showed $680,000 in consulting payments from fossil fuel-linked shells to AOC's associated groups, timed with her public attacks on industry. A recording from a Ritz-Carlton in Florida captured AOC's voice. "A slow transition works for both of us. You keep profits, I keep a campaign issue. Americans feel they're fighting climate change, and we all stay happy." The executive agreed, and if groups push for faster action, AOC blame obstruction or resistance. "The crisis narrative is self-sustaining." Kennedy's voice rose with controlled outrage. "You coordinated with the very industries you demonized, ensuring no progress while profiting from division." The hypocrisy deepened with evidence of AOC's personal environmental footprint. "While demanding sacrifice from working families, your lifestyle tells a different story," Kennedy said, displaying carbon tracking data, 47 commercial flights in a single year, more than most Americans take in a decade, plus a high-energy apartment and frequent fossil fuel vehicle use. "Your emissions rival 15 average households, yet you posted 847 times about climate emergencies." He noted the contradiction, glaring. Another witness, Dr. Michael Chen, former EPA administrator, took the stand, his expertise lending weight. "The Green New Deal is scientifically incoherent," he testified. "It excludes nuclear power essential for carbon reduction and sets timelines that defy physics. It's not policy, it's theater." Kennedy pressed, "Was it meant to succeed?" Chen replied, "No. It was crafted for attention, not results. No serious scientist would propose this." AOC's defenses faltered, her voice weak. These allegations ignore the urgency of climate action and the need for bold vision. Kennedy's response was devastating. Vision, you negotiated with polluters to stall progress. Urgency, you lived a luxury lifestyle while preaching sacrifice. This isn't leadership, it's fraud. He closed the folder with a snap, his resolve unshaken. Congresswoman, you turned environmental hope into a $47 million scam, betraying believers and the planet, while colluding with industries for mutual gain. But the deepest betrayal lies ahead, foreign entanglements and personal enrichment that threaten our very democracy. The chamber braced Kennedy's relentless pursuit of truth, setting the stage for a final reckoning, his commitment to the American people, a guiding light through the darkness of deception. Chapter 4. The Ultimate Betrayal and Lessons Learned. The House Ethics Committee chamber reached a fever pitch of intensity as Senator John Kennedy, the steadfast Louisiana Republican, whose sharp mind and dedication to American values had guided the hearing thus far, approached the fourth and final folder with a gravity that commanded absolute attention. Having methodically unraveled deceptions surrounding national tragedies, economic opportunities, and environmental policies, Kennedy now turned to the most grave accusations: Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez's alleged coordination with foreign adversaries and her personal financial corruption threats that struck at the heart of national security and public trust. Congresswoman, the patterns we've exposed so far point to a deeper rot. Kennedy said, his voice resonant with the weight of constitutional duty, his eyes reflecting a profound sense of responsibility to the American people. You've not only misled your constituents, but potentially compromised our nation's sovereignty and enriched yourself at their expense. The intelligence and financial evidence in this folder reveals a web of foreign influence and personal greed that demands accountability. AOC's composure, already frayed from previous revelations, showed visible cracks, her legal team exchanging worried glances as Kennedy opened the folder to display classified assessments from the NSA, CIA, and Treasury's Financial Crimes Enforcement Network. Kennedy began with the foreign entanglements, his logical prowess shining as he presented communication intercepts and financial trails that painted a picture of systematic betrayal. Over 3 years, the NSA tracked 127 encrypted exchanges between your devices and foreign operatives, timed precisely around key foreign policy votes and briefings. He explained activating displays that charted spikes in activity correlating with AOC's positions on Middle Eastern issues. These weren't casual chats, they advanced interests of state sponsors of terrorism as designated by our government. The chamber hushed as banking records appeared showing $2.3 million in suspicious transfers from foreign entities to AOC-linked accounts funneled through family and associates. This meets the definition of unregistered foreign agent activity, Kennedy stated firmly, his commitment to national security evident in every word. An intercepted call under FISA authority played AOC's voice discussing shifts in American opinion on Gaza. The progressive movement's influence has created the internal division you wanted. University protests are framing it as a civil rights issue. The operative responded appreciatively, highlighting her role in normalizing anti-Israel stances within her party. AOC protested, her voice rising in alarm. These are diplomatic engagements for humanitarian causes. Senator, not espionage. Kennedy countered with unassailable logic. Diplomacy doesn't involve gathering congressional intel for foreign powers or recruiting colleagues into influence networks. He revealed surveillance of meetings with squad members where discussions centered on coordinating policy to serve foreign objectives backed by funding flows to progressive groups. You've built a bloc advancing hostile agendas under the guise of domestic dissent, he said, displaying CIA assessments labeling her an ongoing security threat. Witnesses from intelligence circles testified anonymously via secure link, confirming the operation's sophistication and AOC's central role, their accounts underscoring the risks to American foreign policy. Transitioning seamlessly to personal corruption. Kennedy exposed the financial empire built on deception. Entering Congress with modest means, $7,000 net worth, and student debt you've amassed an estimated $42 million, he revealed charts showing wealth growth impossible on a congressional salary. This came through 14 shell companies controlled by family, receiving $18 million in sham consulting payments, laundered into luxury real estate and a secret Swiss account. Property deeds flashed on screen, a $750,000 Virginia condo, a Hamptons vacation home, all hidden via trusts. A recording from her condo captured AOC's cynicism. Being a democratic socialist means people expect poverty. Perfect cover for wealth building. I got rich off poor folks thinking I'm their fighter. Her boyfriend questioned the hypocrisy, but she dismissed it. They invested in hope. I got security. Fair trade. The human impact hit hard. As James Rodriguez, a former volunteer, testified, I donated my last 27er, believing she fought for us like me, 2 jobs, no health care. Now I learn it funded her luxury. Kennedy's empathy was palpable, thanking James for his courage. Congresswoman, you exploited the vulnerable while preaching equality. He said, his voice firm with moral clarity. AOC's defenses collapsed. I never meant to betray anyone, it spiraled, but Kennedy pressed spiraled. This was calculated, documented in your own words. As AOC sat devastated, Kennedy summarized with prosecutorial finality, you've deceived on tragedies, sabotaged, economies faked, environmentalism colluded with foreigners, and profited personally. I recommend DOJ prosecution for foreign agent violations, fraud, and conspiracy. Ethics expulsion. Treasury asset forfeiture. FEC campaign probes. IRS tax evasion investigations. Resign now, sparing this institution further harm. The chamber erupted, AOC's icon status shattered by facts. Yet Kennedy's closing transcended accusation, offering profound lessons for all. This hearing teaches us that integrity is the bedrock of democracy. No one stands above the law, regardless of popularity or platform. Public service demands unwavering honesty, not exploitation for gain. Citizens must remain vigilant, questioning promises and demanding transparency to safeguard our system. Educate yourselves on civic ethics, engage in oversight, and vote with eyes wide open. Truth prevails when we prioritize it, ensuring leaders serve the people, not themselves. In upholding these principles, we strengthen America for generations.